think about the stupid stuff that I used to do, like I used to I used to sit my little vagina in bleach. I sat in bleach. I took a bath. Mhm. Yeah, and
Wow.
that's not good. That's not good.
Right.
Um, and so I would take a bath in bleach water because I wanted to be lighter.
Welcome back to season 2 with Talking with Tiffany. Today, I have the most wonderfulest guest. And yes, I think all my guests are wonderful. But yes, this is someone that's actually pretty special to me. But it's because the way I met her, the story, and then what she's like actually poured into my life in this past year of me just moving to Houston and all the things that she's done. Um, and then her topic. So today's topic is the power of self-worth. And what we don't recognize is that sometimes we act like we're not worthy. So she is coming in to talk to us. Now, introducing is Nikita Roberson. Now, this woman is phenomenal. I met her last year at a pop-up relationship like panel, and she wasn't even supposed to like come because she had missed her route and all these things, phone died. And then she shows up, and then it was like match made in heaven, right? And so I just had to tell you a little bit about her. So she's the founder of Next Stage Counseling. Yes, she's a counselor and wellness. She's a licensed professional counselor supervisor. She's a sex therapist. So my girls, we in that sex world together, right? And she's a sexologist and clinical relationship coach. She's a certified professional school counselor and educational and motivational speaker. She's a mother, she's a wife, she's a fantastic friend, she's a daughter. She is just amazing. And I'm gonna let her tell a little bit more about herself. But introducing Nakia. Don't know if that was my note, guys, but here she is.
Hi, Tiffany. That was a wonderful intro. I don't know what do I need to add to that? Like, you have to sing and like listen. Come on, yes, ma'am. I always do my intros.
I love that. I'm the perfect hype man. My daughter said that. She's like, Mom is the perfect hype man. I'm like,
Yes. Okay, you need a cheerleader in your corner. This is what I'm saying. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
I'm so happy and thankful that you said yes, and that and I actually had this on my podcast calendar last year, and I didn't get to schedule you on in that. And so I'm like, she's got to be on season 2 because this is the topic. And then interestingly enough, you have gear and a company that focuses on the word worthy and stuff.
Yeah.
And so tell
Yeah.
our audience a little bit about yourself if I missed anything, because I know I didn't say every wonderful thing
Yeah.
about you,
Yeah.
but let us know.
Well, I mean, you said most of it. I am a daughter. I am not only just a daughter to my mother and my father, but I am God's child. So I am his daughter. And I have a sassy, very loving, very smart 7-year-old daughter myself. Love her to pieces. And then I am married. I've been with my husband for over 3 decades. Yeah, so I'm a wife. So just and I am a dancer in my head. So with that mean like I'm always grooving, and you know how they have those memes to say this is what you think you look like, but this is what you actually look like. That's how it is when I'm dancing. So when people say like all Black people don't have rhythm, and I don't know, like it's just the coordination. I don't. But in my head, child, I got it going on. So yeah, I'm dancing in my head, real flex.
Hey, I love it because let me tell you, I'm a rapper in mind, and my husband was like, "You are not in nowhere." But for me, I'm like, "Why did God pick me to do that?" And he was like, "Because you're not good." And I was like,
I'm with you on that too. I'm with you on that too.
Oh,
Oh my goodness.
so I'm thankful that you're joining us on this for this topic, because I think this is something that we put to the side, even though we put a lot of things into what we think is worth. And so
Yeah.
I talk about the word, anytime we put self in front of a word, we
Mhm.
minimize the word in front of it. And so I looked up the word, but I want to know your definition. But I
Mhm.
looked at the word and it said that it's an eternal sense of being
Mhm.
good enough and worthy of love. Um, and what is your definition, and why do you resonate so well with
Yeah.
this word?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm good for looking up a good word too. And so I did look it up and I just wanted to one of the things that the dictionary will pretty much tell you is that it is defined as a feeling that you are a good person and that you treat yourself with respect, right? And so one of the things that I look at when I think about self-worth is I look at the word worth, which means value. And so when we value ourselves, what does that mean? So then it's like, okay, Nikki, will look up value. Value means something that you feel like is important. You feel like it is a prize. And so when you say you put self in it, so that is when I put myself and I say that I hold myself to a high esteem because that's the way that I view me. Not the way anybody else views me, but how do I view me without all of the extra fluff,
Right, right,
without all the extra stuff. How do I see myself? Do I still hold myself as being important? Do I still hold myself as a prize? Do I still hold myself as being someone of value without all the extra stuff?
right. No, and I love that. Because I think for me, it's funny that like I've been going through stuff, and
Mhm.
that I for a long time, I remember telling a friend last year, I said, it's like you found my value and my worth in the lost and found, and you returned it back to me.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
that was something that it was like, she was like, what? And I was like, no,
yeah,
you don't realize it was lost.
yeah.
And for a long time,
Mhm.
I could say I would blame that it was stolen.
Mm.
And nothing, it wasn't necessarily stolen. It was just something that, it's kind of like when your kids don't come home with their coat.
Yeah.
And you're like, why you don't have your coat on? Why you don't have
Mhm.
your coat on? Well, usually what happens is it's either not made cool,
Mhm.
or something, or you're like, man, I don't need this right now, or whatever, or someone's like, oh, you don't need your coat. And
Mhm.
that was how my life looked like. It was
Yeah.
like people devaluing me and
Mhm.
saying things. And so it was like, well, why am I carrying this around if it doesn't mean anything, if it's not keeping
Right.
me warm? And
Right.
so it was like in the lost and found. And I remember meeting my friend, and she was like, oh, you're really great and you're amazing, and you should do this, and you could get paid for it. And I'm like,
Mhm.
what? And we're gonna pay you this much. And I'm like, that much for an hour?
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
she was like, yeah. And
Mhm.
it was just one of those things where I didn't even recognize how much I didn't even see it.
Mhm.
And stuff, because like I said, it like I could have, if I didn't write this book, Sis, Is It You, I would
Mhm.
blame it on people. I'd say you stole it from me, but it's really that I put it down and
Mhm.
lost value in my worth.
Right, right. And I think that is so important because when it comes to self-worth and those things, like I really, really couple it with self-love. Right. And so the thing is, I'm not going to love what I don't value. And so I have to find that value within myself. And people always talk about self care, da 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 da, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's great. We do need to have self care.
Right.
Why don't we have it? Why don't you practice self care? Because I'm going to care for what I love. I'm going to care for what I value. And if I don't value and love myself, then I'm not going to care for myself. And that's why you have so many people and so many women that say, well, I don't practice self care. I don't do anything to care for myself. Well, then you ask them, okay, well, how do you feel about yourself? Do you love yourself?
Hmm.
Do you hold yourself at a high esteem? Do you value yourself? Do you feel like you're important? I don't feel like I'm important. So if I don't feel like I'm not important, I'm not going to pour into myself. I'm not going to care for it. When I have a treasure, then I'm going to make sure that I take care of it because I don't want to lose it.
Right.
I
No,
hold
you're
it
so
dear,
right.
right? And so that's why self worth, self love, like They
They
walk hand
coincide.
in hand. They walk hand in hand. We gotta
They
have.
do. And I even tell people even self-care, and I think the way we've positioned and we've the definition that we've given behind self-care is not the true definition.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
care is something like how you take care of someone at like in a facility. If you're a nurse or something, it's
Mhm.
nursing them back to health and caring for them. And I think that if you don't care for yourself as well, it's hard to love yourself. And
Mhm.
so, like you said, I think it's like a circle of things that
Right.
have to be intertwined and very interconnected to
Mhm.
actually be able to say, "Hey, I'm able to do this." And like you said, if you don't value yourself and don't think you're worthy, you're
Mhm.
definitely not going to care for yourself, and you're not going to love it and
Right.
stuff like that. And so, I definitely attest to that. Like that's something I've also struggled at. So
Yeah.
going into my first question,
Mhm.
what has been your experience with self-worth now as an adult versus your early years in life?
Ooh, you know what? I think a lot of it when I was younger, my self-worth was tied to external factors. And so what I mean by that, it is about what happened outside of me, what other people thought, what other people said. I remember there was a time growing up that I was like, well, I don't think that I'm important. I don't think that I'm worth anything. One, because I'm this little chocolate child walking around, and we had all the songs. Well, I'm not gonna say all of the songs, but a lot of the songs that we listened to growing up, and the videos like, oh, you need a red bone, and you need a yellow bone. And I was like, well, I'm not red, I'm not yellow. And so because of that, the guys, they went with the lyrics of those songs
Ooh,
because that's who the rappers said was beautiful. That's who the rapper said was worth anything, right? And so that's who they went for. And so what I did was I internalized that to mean that I'm not worth it. I'm not worth it. I'm not pretty. I'm not valuable. I'm not important. And so I remember walking around with my head down because I felt that I did not need to have the world to face me. And I remember we were living in some apartments at a time. And I remember one of the maintenance men, he was picking up the trash and he said, say, little girl, you every time I see you, you always walking with your head down. You so pretty. Hold your head up so that the world could see you. Why do you hold your head down? My head was down because I did not want the world to see me. Because I did
mm,
not deem myself as being valuable. I did not deem myself as being worthy because of what I thought that worthy and valuable was based on what other people. So in my home, it was a different story. But outside my home, it was different because of all of those external beliefs and all of those external things that was being dumped into my mind. And so I began to eat that up. Like every that what I wasn't supposed to be eating that. Like we
right,
sometimes go to people's houses and eating stuff, go to buffets. Stop eating stuff that you're not supposed to be eating. And that's something that I was not supposed to be consuming. I should not have been consuming that. I should have continued to believe who I was when I was in my house with my family, those people that loved me. And then when I walked outside of that protection and that safety, I began to internalize and take on what other people was throwing at me. And I swallowed that and I allowed that to consume me.
yeah. I first of all, number one, being brown just like you, I
Yeah.
definitely understand. I remember
Yeah.
one time I was in the club and this guy said, "Damn, girl, you fine for a chocolate girl."
Oh,
That is not a compliment.
right,
Like,
right,
like
right.
it's a I'll pass. Um, but then also recognizing, like you said, we were eating that shit up. And I
Mhm.
say shit because it was poop. And so
That's
what
what
like you
it was.
said, you fill yourself up with all that shit.
Yeah.
And then that's all you have either to regurgitate or to
Mhm.
put out.
Right.
And so it's like either way, the worthiness of you smelling
Mhm.
is not necessarily something that anybody wants to be around. So you kind of make yourself a pungent smell.
Right.
And
Right.
I never recognized that I was actually doing that based on all the stuff that I was being fed. You know
That
what
you
I'm saying?
yes. And we consumed it. We
Yeah.
consumed it. All of that stuff that we were being fed and we consumed it. And then the thing is to sometimes I look back and I said, you know what? The things that I thought other people thought of me is probably not what they thought of me. It is because that's what I consumed and I internalized that, and that's what I thought of me. So that's what I put out. That's
Yeah.
what I put out. Like you may not have, they probably was like, oh no, she's staring at you, and you be like, oh Lord, they staring because they think I'm funny looking or because I'm chocolate. And they probably, oh no, I think you're cute. Or I
Right.
think it's something other than what I may be thinking. And so I've learned that, you know what? I have got to stop thinking the negative. Why do I automatically go to the negative? I got to stop thinking the negative, and I got to understand that I need to check myself. I need to check myself. I need to work through some things that I have allowed to fester in me and grow in me. And I need to begin to chop some of that crap down. I need to begin to uproot,
Ooh,
uproot all of that, like you said, all of that crap that I did not have any business consuming. I didn't have
no.
any business consuming.
Right. Right. And now that you're, even as you're saying that, I think one of the things that affected us was not knowing where we came from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, now knowing how beautiful Africa is, right?
Yeah.
And you see these beautiful, like dark,
Yes.
dark, like
Yes.
almost blue,
Mm-hmm.
like a blue black, beautiful women, and their skin is just beaming with radiance and stuff like that. And you're like, that's so beautiful. And then just to recognize, like you said, and I haven't even thought this is worthy.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like, my thing was, oh, I got to get me a light skinned man. I want a light skin. Because now
Yeah.
I start to believe it and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And then, mind you, divorce that one, get a brown skin. And
And look at life now.
right,
At
hallelujah.
life now. Yeah.
And I think for me, it was just one of those things, also, like you said. And I think with us both being therapists and a counselor and life coach and all those things that we've encompassed,
Mhm.
one thing for me was not recognizing how much the brain retains the stuff that
Mhm.
you even listen to that you think is positive, like you said,
Yep.
music,
The music.
right? And
Mhm.
then you're being, it finds a place to go in your brain, and then it settles there, and then it comes out in different ways, whatever way it can come out your mouth and come out your disposition, your attitude, the way you even value yourself is just like, oh, I don't think I deserve that, or I don't
Mhm.
even think I should be in that area because that's not what they like. When I met
Mhm.
my husband, I figured I wasn't his type.
Yeah.
And he was like,
Yeah.
"Who
That's
how
right.
do you know my type?
Mhm.
Like who are you? My mom is your color." Like, and
Mhm.
not recognizing, like, I would think that you were trying to veer so much away from that.
Yeah.
In your adult life,
Mhm.
what was the difference of you now then transforming that self-worth?
Mhm. Um, really had to have I had to sit down, I had to have a conversation with God. You know,
Mm,
I had to remember who my creator is. And so I had to dig and study and do some deep studying, because his word says we are fearfully and wonderfully made, right? And so we are an extension of him. We represent him. And if I believe that I serve a good God, he's a good father, then why don't I have any of that goodness in me? Why don't I had to learn to see myself through his eyes?
yeah.
Lord, help me to see me the way you see me. Not
Wow.
what anybody else says, not with my accomplishments, not with the things that I fail at, not with the things that I succeed at, but how do you see me? If I was stripped of all of that, what is it about me to where you feel like you say that I will leave the 99 and go and get that one? What makes
Girl.
me that one? What makes me that one? So God help me. And I had to pray that prayer. And I still pray that prayer because you know what? Beginning to love yourself is an everyday journey.
Mhm.
It's an everyday journey because we have a critic. That negative self talk is going to always be opening its mouth and saying stuff. But then I have to begin to check it and say, you know
Yeah.
what? but the word says this. My father says this. You may say, but my father says this. And guess what? He is going to always send somebody who's going to reiterate what it is that he wants you to know. Like there was one time, there's been several times, Tiffany, that you have called me or sent me a text when I was having a moment. And I text you the other day and I was like, oh my God, you always know, like I was doing something, I wasn't too happy with it, and that negative critic was going off in my head. Then you sent me a text, and the word that you used was gift. And I was like, see, God is going to answer your call. He's going to answer your call. When you pray that prayer and say, God, help me see myself the way you see me. And sometimes he says, I'm going to have to give the mouthpiece to somebody else and have
Mm.
a spokesperson say that. Then that's what, and I was like, soon as you sent me that message, I just began to cry. And then you sent a prayer. Then you sent the prayer, and I was like, see, this is what I needed, because the negative critic was going off in my head, and you were saying, you're not gonna consume that. No, ma'am. You are
Girl, you got
worth
tears in my.
you are worth much more. And so that's the thing that I had to realize as an adult. As an adult, I had to know that I have to just continue going before the Father every single day. It is a daily walk, and being able to take in when I have family and friends pour into me. And when they pour in the good word, when you pour there, you pour the good stuff. When they pour the good stuff, that's what I want to consume. And the more of the good stuff that I consume, guess what? It's going to drown out that other crap that I don't need to be listening to, that I don't need to hear.
That girl, first of all, let me tell you, I have chills on my arms. I have tears in my eyes because I had no idea. I
Yeah.
just was being obedient
Mm,
to what I had heard. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? And so, first of all, thank you, because I didn't even know. You never even know what you're doing for
Yeah.
someone. And you've been so good to me, and you don't recognize that either. And because you
Mhm.
might say, girl, I barely weep. But it's the little things that you say,
Yeah.
like you just showing up last year for the conference and just saying, I believe in this.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And that was something where it was just like, wow, like how often do you just meet people off the rip
Yeah.
and then they say, okay, girl, I'm rocking with you. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
thank you. Girl, you got me stunned. Thank you. When did you recognize that you weren't being aware of self-worth? Like, what was something that you can say that triggered, like, you know what? I don't think I'm actually
Mhm.
valuing myself.
Mm. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't taking care of me. I started seeing a therapist, and I had to do some work on me. And so with doing that, I was just kind of, it was an assignment that my therapist had given me one time, where I had to write out, I forget it was something about finding my strengths. What are your strengths? And then we had to write out like what the story was that was behind what I felt about myself in certain situations. And as I began to write it out, I realized that when I wrote about it, it was like you write about your past, write about your present, write about your future. When I wrote about my past, Tiffany, I had so much to say. I had so much to say. There were so many things that that had hurt me that I had not addressed. Um, when I wrote about my present, I had a little bit to say. When I wrote about my future, it was hard for
Wow.
me to envision myself going forward. And so I was like, okay, that means I got to go back to that past, and I've got to do some healing. And like I said, speaking of color, and being someone who has taken classes and working on my certification as a sex therapist, and sexology, and teaching that, like I sit and I think about the stupid stuff that I used to do. Like I used to I used to sit my little vagina in bleach. I sat in bleach. I took a bath. Mhm. Yeah. And I
Wow.
know that's not good. That's not good.
Right.
And so I would take a bath in bleach water because I wanted to be lighter. I would use the brush that you're supposed to clean the tub with, and I began to wash my body with this water, with bleach water. I'm like, yo, and I'm like, yo, naked behind girl sitting in this bleach water. That's not good.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the show. Make sure you click the link below and pick up one of these Sis Is It You books. This book is some of the things that me and the ladies are talking about. It has a lot of helpful tools in this book. Don't get discouraged by the spine. It's not a journal, it's a book. It just allows you to flip it back and do things like this. So click the link below or tiffany.com, tiffynee.com, and pick this up. Sis Is It You or sisisyou.com. Enjoy the rest of the show.
That's not good. And so I had to begin to heal, and I had to begin to take ownership of the way I was feeling, and tear that down, tear that belief system down. And then after doing that and beginning to recognize that you are worth so much more. Um and you have so much more to offer than you are giving yourself credit for. And so then I began to say, okay, well, I need to treat myself better. Let me work on that. So I hired a therapist, and I got some support on my team. And so I got me a trainer, and I began to pour into me, do things that's going to make me feel good. I began to take my time when I took my showers and took my bath. I did not rush that. So when
Mm-hmm.
I began to oil my body, I began to speak words of gratification. I'm so grateful that I'm so grateful of my melanin, right?
Mm.
I'm so grateful that I have my arms and my legs. And I began to take my time with me. I began to take my time with me. I began to wear clothes that made me feel good, right? And I began to say thank you to the compliments. And sometimes that's still hard, but I'll be like, thank you. Because we feel like we have to give a compliment back,
Yeah.
or we feel like we have to devalue the compliment. Oh, that's a cute top. Oh, this whole thing, I've had
Yeah.
this for 2 years. Like, I began to just say thank you, and not feel obligated that I had to say something nice back, and not feel obligated or feel like I had to devalue the compliment.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, first of all, wow, and just to understand that we've never even people audience we've never had this conversation.
Yeah.
Um, and the fact that for me, I used to feel like I had to dilute my blackness.
Mm.
So it was telling people I was mixed with something, even though I'm not. Like my mom is got lots of things in her, and I never knew what they were. But my sister
Mhm.
knew. My sister had identity. She knew she was black and Japanese,
Yeah.
and so I just adopted that.
Mhm.
So I'm like, why? People are like, why's your hair so straight? Like, because you have beautiful hair, even though you
Mhm.
have locks in right now. People don't know
Yeah.
your hair is naturally curly. It is bomb.
Thank you.
Um, But even like when I would just wear my hair, people like, "Oh, why are your hair so straight? Why are your eyes so chinky?" "Oh, I'm Japanese and black."
Yeah.
And I remember when I had to tell my husband that I used to tell people that, and he laughed at me.
So I was like, what is wrong with you?
He was like, "What?" And I was like, "Right." But it's being it's also what you hear when you have a
Mhm.
baby. Like, check the
Right.
behind the ears. How dark are they going to be? And it's always like, how can I how can I make sure that this doesn't hinder me in a world full of people that don't fully appreciate what God
Mhm.
created?
Right. Right.
And that is hard. Like I don't think people talk about that enough about like what their experience is. It's just more of like when you hear colorism, you hear people always want to go back and forth, but it's just like respect each person's experience
Yes.
and
Exactly.
honor it and stuff because either way, you could be light skinned and not feel worthy. You can feel dark skinned and not feel worthy. But
Mhm.
the common denominator is the non worthiness
Right.
that you
Right.
feel. And so I definitely have experienced that. So I know what you feel like.
Mhm. Yeah. One thing that you said was like when you said how you took on what your sister was saying, right? And so the thing is sometimes what we do is we conform, I'm sorry, I'm child, but we conform because we want to be accepted.
Yep.
So it's just like when you have a pitcher of water, wherever I pour that water is going to conform into the shape that I've poured it into. So if it's I poured it into a square, I pour it into something that's shaped like a gingerbread or whatever, it is going to take on the shape of whatever I've poured it into. And sometimes we do that. We feel like I don't want to be myself. And that's what goes with people who are people pleasing and all that kind of stuff. But I'm so afraid to be myself that I am going to be this generic version of myself. I'm just going to be whatever I need to be so that I can be accepted amongst whatever crowd I'm in at the time.
Right. Right. Man, you ain't never lied. Like just being around, if I had light skinned friends, it was
Mhm.
always they were first pick.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
it was like you were always going to get whatever
the
leftover.
leftovers.
And they
Mhm.
could have the trashiest attitude,
Yeah,
right? And then to me, I'm like, I'm looking at these guys, I'm like, y'all don't know.
what I know.
I'm the best picky, right?
You don't know what I know.
But then
Mhm,
also getting to a point, and this goes into my next question where it says that when did you know that you needed to reevaluate self-worth? For
mhm.
me, it was realizing, even now with all the talents God has given me,
Yeah.
that God has hidden me in plain sight. And that if I am hidden in plain sight, is to protect me.
Yeah.
And I think back to the Elijah story when Elijah was at the Cherith and
Mhm.
God sent him to the Cherith, and then when the God sent the king, and the king and the other guy went, I can't remember his name. The other guy went to go find where some green grass was so they could feed their cattle and stuff, and they ran
Mhm.
into Elijah, and Elijah was the guy was telling him like people have been after you.
Yeah.
And I was reading this devotional, and it was like, you don't recognize that you don't even know what's after you or what's sent to harm you because it knows your worth.
Mhm.
Yet God is saying, I have to now hide you because you
Yes.
don't necessarily know how valuable you are. And until you do, I
Mhm.
cannot release you to this world. Otherwise, it will damage you even further, and there may not be no coming back from that. And so that's
Mhm.
something that I had to experience, was being hidden in plain sight. And people like, why are you not picking me? I'm a sexologist. I'm da-da-da-da. And
Mhm.
God's like,
Mhm.
chill out, bro.
It's
Chill
not
out.
your time yet. It's not your time yet. It's not, yeah.
So what do you think your experience was
Mhm.
with the reevaluation? Because I know you said you had a conversation with God, but
Yeah.
prior to you even getting to that conversation with God, like where do you actually recognize where you're like, wait a second, I'm being hidden. I am being,
Mhm.
this is something where everybody can't go with me. I can't go with everybody, like, because the value of me
Mhm.
is way too high to be carried in like a caravan of thieves.
Yeah. Hmm. That's a good question. That's a tough question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure when man, I'm not sure when I actually realized it. I know that I knew that something had to change when I became a mother to a daughter.
Mm, there you go. That's it.
I knew that I did not want my child to grow up or to feel the things that I felt. Um, and so at that time, I had to step back and I had to notice what was happening within me so that I can make sure that I am not presenting that before her. I wanted her experiences to be her own experiences, but I wanted it to be different. I wanted her to know that it's okay for her um to take risk, and it is okay for her to love herself for who she is. And to understand that not everybody is going to like you or agree with you, or everybody is not going to find you to be worthy, but you have to find yourself to be worthy. One of the affirmations that my daughter says in the mornings is, It's this YouTube video that she likes, and one of the things that says, "It's okay if someone doesn't like me, because I know that a lot of people love me." And I have to
Woo!
repeat that to myself sometimes, right? Um, and so helping her to understand that everybody is not going to hold you to a high esteem, but you hold yourself there. So, regardless of what somebody else thinks or feels about you, because this is what happens, a person can put you here, and as soon as they get pissed off, or as soon as they find the next best thing, boom, they can take you right on down. But if I am myself, love myself, and I have myself here, then only me, right? Only me. Because the thing is, we're so busy with competing, competition, kind of like what I was saying about the songs, and me feeling like I had to compete with my light skinned friends or whatever because of the songs or whatever. But every time there's a competition, that somebody is going to always supersede. You're going to always have a winner, and you're going to always have somebody who's not the winner, who's the loser, who comes in second. Right.
Right.
And so understanding that we don't have to compete against other people. And somebody brought up a good point, and I was talking to the other day, you don't have to compete against yourself, because which part of you are you saying you want to lose? I don't want no part
Mm,
of me to lose. I don't want no part of me to lose. So with that, having my daughter, I realized that I had to show her something different. I did not want her to to take on the same things that I've taken on, or to hear me saying things to devalue myself, because I wanted her to know that you need to be comfortable. I want you to be comfortable in every aspect of you, in the parts of you that fail, in the parts of you that succeed. Because knowing that my failures and my successes do not, um, it does not change my value. It doesn't change my value. It doesn't change my worth.
you are so right.
And so that's what that I think that's what that was my turning point, is when I was like, you know what, you're getting ready to have a daughter. You're getting ready to have a daughter. And if she doesn't value herself, if she doesn't find herself worthy, then she's going to be eating all of the crap
That you
that you
fed.
were eating. And now we have so much more. Like, we didn't have the internet and all of that kind of stuff. We have so much more. And so I want her to know that I don't have to take the first man that comes along, because that's what I thought I had to do. I don't want to have to take the first man that comes along, or the first boy that says that I'm pretty, because I think that nobody else out there is
Mm,
going to, because I don't feel like that I'm worthy of anything more than what somebody's giving me that may not be true.
yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You said in the beginning of this, as you're talking, I'm listening and I hear the Holy Spirit, and he said, "This is where, for me, I had to sandwich myself in between God,
Mm,
because when the weight of things gets too heavy, the first thing you do is you fall.
mhm.
But if I'm sandwiched between God, God is there to sustain me.
Yes.
And then if I keep God as my ceiling,
Mhm.
then when the underground people try to, oh, I'm better than them or whatever, God will keep me where I don't start to find where I think I'm above people, where my ego then gets out of whack.
Yes.
And one thing God has checked me about just in the past like few weeks, actually in the last past few months, because I was going to go to, I applied for grad school, was going to go be a neuroscience, yeah, all that. Didn't get in, made the top 10, made the top 6,
Mhm.
didn't make the top 3, knocked me out. And I was like lost for a moment.
Mhm.
And God said, like, if that one thing makes you feel not worthy. And so in the past few weeks, I've been reading this book, and it has said, like, a lot of times we take all our accolades and titles into a
Mhm.
room because we think that it carries something with us,
Yes. Yeah.
when we really need to just be worthy in the fact that we are God's child. And you said that in the beginning. Not
Mhm.
only am I a daughter to someone else, I am the daughter and the heir of
Mhm.
my heavenly Father, right?
Yeah. Right.
And I had to settle in that. I
Mhm.
had to literally say, God's saying, you are enough, because if you're an heir, that means you get everything that I pass on to you.
Yes. Yes.
And so It doesn't matter if you're Tiffany the sexologist, Tiffany the
Mhm.
neuroscientist, Tiffany whatever, right? Um,
Mhm.
and sometimes it's so much trying to be different than other people. And
Right.
God is like, I haven't created anybody the same. I don't even create twins the same. And so me recognizing that, even as you say that, is just recognizing that self-worth is something that you constantly have to be mindful of,
Mhm.
but you also have to, like I said, sandwich yourself in between the Father to
Yes.
make sure that you stay in the grasp of his promises.
Yes.
And so for yeah, and me having two daughters, you're right. That was something where I was like, I don't want them to experience anything
Mm-mm.
that I've ever experienced because I know how that's like. And so,
Mhm.
and I know what it does, and I know the hard work that it takes to even get to the fact of having to build yourself up and what it takes in that.
Mhm. Yeah.
So going into that, what is 3 to 5 things that you can tell the audience today about self-worth to themselves? Like how do they what's your tips on like this is a must,
Um,
sis?
I would say one is reflect and check on how you measure yourself. I think that's very important. We have to reflect on how we measure ourselves. Who are you holding yourself up to? Check that. The other thing is to establish boundaries because you have to protect yourself. And so a lot of times people think that boundaries are for the other person, but boundaries are for you. Um, and not only that, but you have to set boundaries with yourself and you have to hold true to those things. Be able to sit with your emotions because it's not going to always be pretty. And so know that going down this journey of loving myself and finding and deeming myself to be worthy is not going to be a pretty journey. It is a daily thing. It is something that you're going to have to work through every day and know that sometimes it's going to be lonely. Sometimes you're going to be by yourself. One of the things the reason that I named my practice next stage is because of the concept of the butterfly. And I always tell this story, but just studying that before I chose the name for my company was when I looked at when the butterfly goes in the chrysalis, like that butterfly is by itself.
Mm,
It is all by itself. And sometimes you're going to be alone. And even while it's in that chrysalis, it's not a stage. Well, it is just chilling. It is not a resting stage
ooh,
because it is transforming. And when we're transforming, so if I go from a place of not loving myself to now I am starting to love myself, I'm going through this transformation. And so some things are going to hurt. There's some things that I'm going to have to let go of. There are some people that I'm going to have to let go of. There are some voices in my head that I'm going to have to check. And so when the butterfly is in that chrysalis, it liquefies. And when something is in a liquid stage, it is very, very vulnerable. And
yes.
so the chrysalis is this protection. So Jesus is your protection in the chrysalis, right? You're in that alone stage. And that doesn't mean that he's saying you watching Netflix and chilling, sis. You gonna hurt because some people are going to leave you because guess what? Everybody's not going to be ready for your change.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have to understand that it's not you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not. Everybody's not going to be ready. And you can't take everybody with you. You
Yeah.
just can't. And so when you're in that stage, know that there are going to be some times that you're going to be alone, but you're going to have to be okay with that. You're going to have to be able to sit with your feelings, sit with your emotions, and process that. Because of one time, sometimes what we do is when we have those icky feelings and emotions, we just want to get past it. And so we ignore it, or either we try to speed past it.
Yeah.
And that's not okay either because you can't rush the healing process. We do anything too quickly, we can hurt ourselves. If I eat my food too fast, I'm going to get a stomach ache.
Yeah.
And so slow down and go through the healing process. Go through the healing process. So I would say reflect on how you're measuring yourself, who you're measuring yourself with. Check your boundaries with yourself. Know that there are times that you're going to be alone. And in that alone stage, it does not mean it's going to be your resting stage, because you are transforming. And then the other thing is, be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Be kind to yourselves. We can be so unkind to ourselves. So the words that you would say to a friend, one thing that I've done is sometimes I write letters to myself. And one time I went to this workshop and we had to write a card, write some nice words to yourself. And then the presenter later mailed it out to us, because sometimes what we would say to a friend is not what we would say to ourselves. So be kind to yourself. Write yourself a letter and then go back and read those words. Write yourself a letter as though you were writing to your closest friend and you were trying to encourage them. And then forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Forgive yourself. I've forgiven myself for sitting my chocolate behind in that doggone Clorox water. That could have harmed, I could have hurt myself. What was I thinking? But
Yeah.
forgive yourself for the things that you did not know at the time. But
Mm-hmm.
now that I know better, I must do better. But I forgive myself for that. I
Yeah.
forgive myself. And so be able to forgive yourself and know that. And the last one, I just keep adding, see yourself the way God sees you. Okay, I'm done. I'm done.
No, you're fine. And I think um one of the things you said, and I just want to touch on this really quick, is that you said when you cannot rush the healing process and the transformation process. And people don't know this, but if a butterfly's cocoon is open too soon,
Oh my gosh.
the
Yes.
wings will not come out as big. You can get one wing bigger than the other one, and then you're basically doomed because you can't do anything. And
Yep.
so, recognizing that the struggle is what actually helps you get the strength and the capacity to be able to do what God is created you to do. And a butterfly is created to be beautiful. And
Yes.
so I don't look beautiful with one wing and one little wing, you know what I'm
No.
saying?
Right.
And then I look bad at myself because I've rushed myself through everything. And
Mhm.
I always tell people, I'm like, you often are in a rush to nowhere.
Where you going?
Right? And I'm like, and Jesus walked everywhere, like walked 2 feet. And so I like slow down that's something I've even had to tell myself because
Mhm.
you can see, and here's the last thing I'm going to say, you can see worth ahead of you and
Mm.
be in a rush
Yeah.
to get it just to think that it's adding something to you. But if you
Mhm.
are not ready
If you're
for
not
the value to be placed on you, you will abuse it if you get
Mhm.
it too soon.
Yep.
And so I just want to thank you so much for having being
Yeah.
on the show. What do you have coming up? How do people find you? How do
Yep.
people get in contact with you? How do people get your services?
So I am Next Stage CW at all platform on all my platforms, and so we do have Instagram Next Stage CW, Facebook Next Stage CW, and YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Next Stage CW, so you can go to all of those platforms. Instagram.com backslash Next Stage CW, YouTube backslash at the at sign for YouTube at Next Stage CW. And what we have coming up is we do have our wellness walk. And so March the 25th, we are going to hit the track and we're going to walk, because our office does also offer walk talk therapy. So we can do all things well. And so, with that being said, we're going to practice getting out there and moving our bodies. And so, we will have the wellness walk coming up, and you can go to our website at nextstagecounseling.com backslash self love day. Nextstagecounseling.com backslash self love day. I think that's all that I have coming. Oh, and then we also have a relationship program that you can look into as well. So we do work with couples a lot. And so we have a relationship program where we help to stop your relationship from flatlining if you're tired of living like roommates, because sometimes that's what we do is we're in the same house, but we're living like roommates. And so how do I ignite the flame and rebuild that connection? And you can go to nextstagecounseling.com backslash game plan, because it's our intimacy and passion game plan.
I love that. Well, thank you
Mhm.
so much for being
Yes.
on on this show. Give me a quick pose so I can honor your time. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Please join us for the next episode. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you tune in to season 2 with Talking with Tiffany. This season, we have a lot of impactful, powerful guests that are going to dive really deep into some of these words that we put self in front of. You know how I say every time you put the word self in front of a word, you minimize the word in front of it. But these people are actually doing these words wholeheartedly. So check out season 2, press subscribe, like it, and share, please. Enjoy your week.